Hey everybody, in this video what we're going to do is we're going to finish up section 1 where we're going to talk about pairs of angles, and then in the second part what we're going to do for section 2 is we're going to learn about the different angle measures and then also how to find different values. So the first type of angle pair that we need to talk about are adjacent angles. And so those are going to be angles that share the same vertex and ray. Now, that may not mean very much to you, but something that is going to be easier to understand is that they are angles that are next to each other. So down below, I have some examples of angles where we need to identify if they are adjacent or not. So the first one, ABC and CBD. Well, this right here is, this one right here is angle ABC, and then this angle here is CBD. Both of them have a vertex at point B, and they happen to share a ray, which is this right here in the middle, BC. So that means that yes, these are going to be adjacent angles. Then for the second one, we have RQS as an angle, and then we have TPS. And the problem that we have is that these do not share a vertex. The angle on the left has a vertex at Q, the angle on the right has a vertex at P, and so this, because they do not share a vertex, they are not adjacent angles. And then for the last one, we have MON and we have KOL. These angles do share a vertex here, however, they do not share a ray. So that means then that these also are not adjacent angles. So only the first example on the left is a case where we had adjacent angles. Alright, so we can also add and subtract angle measures. So this here is a protractor, and we have some angles that are drawn on top of it. So normally if you are going to go left to right, you want to read the numbers on the top. If you are going to be, sorry, I could keep that there. If you're going to be going from right to left, you read the numbers that are on the bottom. So in this here, we are supposed to find the measure of angle BOD. So BOD is this angle right here. So in order to find that, I noticed that this ray is at 140 degrees, and this ray is at 40. And actually, if you look below, we also have 140 and 40. So it doesn't really matter which pair we use, as long as they're both on the top or they're both on the bottom. So now we just need to subtract these two, and if we do 140 degrees minus 40 degrees, we get 100, and that is the measure of angle BOD. Alright, so in this question, what I want you to do is I want you to find the measures of these three angles, pause the video, and when you are done, I will show you how we would get those measures. Alright, now that you found them, let's go ahead and see what those measures were. So the first one, angle ROS, is that angle right there. So we have 120 degrees and we have 180 degrees. So if we did 180 minus 120, that gives us 60 degrees. And actually, I realized as well, after I picked 120 and 180, you could see below as well, we had 60 and we had 0, and we could have figured out it was 60 that way as well. Okay, for the second one, we are trying to find ROT, so that is this full angle here. This time, let's go ahead and use the bottom numbers. We have 0 there, and this one we have 150. And so we know that if we subtracted those two, we are going to get 150 degrees. Then the last one that we have is SOT. So SOT is right here. This time I'm going to use the 30 there and the 120 there. And if we subtract, we get 90 degrees. So it turns out that angle is a right angle. So a common picture you're going to see is this here where you have a bunch of angles that are going to all share the same vertex, if you ever get a picture like this, the angles are always going to add up to 360 degrees. So if we wanted to solve this and we're trying to find x, we have to do x plus 80 degrees plus 70 degrees, and that will be equal to 360. Now we need to combine our like terms on the left side. So I see x plus x, that makes 2x. 80 and 70, that will add together to make 150 degrees. And now we just need to solve for x. So we have to subtract 150 on both sides. We get 2x is equal to 210. We divide both sides by 2. And that leaves us with x is 105 degrees. Alright, now it's your turn. Go ahead and solve this question. Pause the video. When you are done, start the video again, and then I will explain how to do it. Okay, now that you have tried this question, I'm going to show you how to do it. We are told that angle 1 was 40 degrees, so we should go ahead and write that in the picture. We also know that angle 2 and angle 4 are both x. And then lastly, angle 3 is 90 degrees because we have the symbol for a right angle there. Now we just need to add all of these together, so we have x plus 40 plus x plus 90. And that's going to be equal to 180 degrees. Then we need to combine our like terms, so I see x and x makes 2x. We've got 40 and 90 to add and make 130. And then from here, we just need to subtract 130 and then divide by 2, and that will get us our answer. So what you should have gotten was 115 degrees for x. Alright, the next type of angle pair that we're going to have is the linear pair. So these are adjacent angles that will sum to 180 degrees. And one hint of the angles that we are looking for, they are supposed to make a straight line. And just like I circled up there at the top, you see the word line in linear pair. So that's your hint. Whenever you are trying to find the measure of these two angles, they will always make a straight line, and we know that a straight line is always 180 degrees. And another pair of angles that we need to know are the vertical angles. So these are non-adjacent angles, as in they are not next to each other, and they're going to be formed by intersecting lines. So one thing I notice with a vertical angle is that when we take these and we cross them, we're going to get a V shape there, and we're going to get a V shape across from it as well. And together they make that X. Likewise, if I were to go to angle 1 and do that, and then if I go to angle 3, we get the same thing. So down below, vertical angles are always blank. Well, what does it appear that angle 1 and angle 3 have in common? Hopefully you recognize these are congruent. They are the same measure. And then likewise, the same is going to be true for angle 4 and angle 2. So angle 2 and angle 4 will always be congruent. Sorry, I should say, there we go. And so this is the symbol for congruent as well, right there. So angle 2 and angle 4 are congruent, and then angle 1 and angle 3 are going to be congruent. Okay, for these questions, I want you to go ahead and answer them. When you are done, pause the video. When you are done, then you can start it up again, and I will show you how to answer these. Okay, so for part A, it tells us that we're supposed to name two pairs of adjacent angles. Now, there's a lot of them in this picture, so I'm just going to name two pairs that I noticed myself. The first one that I'm going to start with is this right here, DOE. And then I need to pick an angle that happens to share a ray with either OD or it needs to share with OE. And so I'm going to choose the one that is OD, and I'm going to pick this angle here, and that is COD. So that's going to be my first pair of adjacent angles. Now I'm going to select another pair, and this time I'm going to choose EOA. And I could use DOE again, but instead I'm just going to show you with this angle over here. That one is adjacent. And so we'll use angle AOB as the other. And that takes care of part A. Okay, for part B then, we need to name two pairs of vertically opposite angles, or earlier I described these as vertical angles. So I'm going to start with angle DOE again. That just looks like an easy one for me. And then we have to make another V shape that is across from that V, and I can pick that right there. So angle COB will be vertical with angle DOE. Now we have to pick another one as well. And so this time I'm going to start with DOC. And this time we actually have two angles that together will make a larger angle. So we're going to use angle EOB because that is vertical to DOC. I've made my two V's on either side here, and you can see that they both make that V shape that are across from each other. Alright, then the last one, we needed to name two angles that form a linear pair. Again, there are a lot of them that are in this picture, so I'm just going to choose one pair. So I am going to use angle EOA. And remember that a linear pair forms a line, so that means that we are going to have to use that right there, angle COA. And again, there are many options for letter C. That's just one possible answer there. Okay, well, it says figure above, but actually we're talking about the picture right here. So we are supposed to find the measure of all four angles if we know that angle 1 is 3x plus 10, and if angle 3 is 4x minus 10. So the first thing we need to know is what is the relationship between these two angles? So I see that we've got that angle there at 3, we've got this angle at 1. Hopefully you recognize that these are vertical angles. And what's true about vertical angles, as we saw earlier right here, vertical angles are always going to be congruent. So we know that those two must have the same measure. I'm going to go ahead and set them equal to each other. 4x minus 10 is equal to 3x plus 10. I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. That leaves us with x minus 10 is equal to 10. Then I can add 10 to both sides. And we see that x is going to be 20. And I shouldn't have circled that because we were supposed to find the measures of all the angles. So if we know that this first one is going to be 20, then what we can do for angle 3 is we can put 20 in for x. And we see then that we get 80 minus 10, and therefore the measure of angle 3 is 70 degrees. And because it was vertical to angle 1, therefore angle 1 also has to be 70 degrees. Now the last part for us, I'm going to erase the 4x minus 10 and the 3x plus 10. because we already know those measures as 70 degrees, we know then that angle 4 and angle 1 are supposed to add up to 180 degrees because they are a linear pair. So we just need to do either angle 4 plus 70 equals 180, or you might see that the faster way is we just have to subtract 70, and that leaves us with the measure of angle 4 being equal to 110 degrees. And if angle 4 is 110, then so is angle 2, because those are vertical angles. And if we want to check our work, all 4 of those angles, all of these here, should add up to 360 degrees. And I see that they do, because 70 and 70 is 140, 110 and 110 are 220, and 220 plus 140 does make 360. Okay, this time I want you to use these 2 angles. First, find what is the value of y when r and s are vertically opposite, and then the second part, find r and s when they form a linear pair. So pause the video, answer these. When you are done, I will give you the answers. Okay, so for the first one, angle r and angle s are vertical. That means that these 2 are going to be equal to each other. And something that I realized when I solved this question earlier, we get a kind of a weird answer. If we combine our like terms, so we're going to subtract 2y from both sides, we get y plus 9 is equal to negative 4. If we then subtract 9 from both sides, and I'm kind of running out of space, so I'm going to move this off to the side for now. What we found then was that y equaled negative 13. And actually that shows then that these angles don't exist because we get a negative measure. So this, if you got that answer and you thought it was wrong, I apologize. You were actually correct, but that should be an answer that shouldn't have happened. It just is because I chose some bad numbers for angle R and angle S. Okay, then for the second part, if they are a linear pair. So remember, a linear pair, those make a straight line, and a straight line is 180 degrees. So we're going to add them together, set it equal to 180. Then I know by combining my like terms, 3y and 2y make 5y. 9 and negative 4 are going to make 5. We're going to subtract 5 from both sides. Then we have to divide both of these by 5. And you will get that y is 35. All right, that is everything. So here's the assignment. Just be aware that I am going to tell you which questions are required to complete and then which ones you can skip or you can do if you need more practice. Thank you for listening to the video. And